Okay, so welcome to our next talk. UI5 goes mixed reality. Maybe you've already seen those glasses at our booth back there and are intrigued. And I should move into the camera view. Thanks. Yeah, so Ulf and Christian will show you some UI5 with mixed reality. I asked Christian how to introduce him, and he said he doesn't need any introduction. So I like the confidence. Please.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Don't worry, I just said I don't need an introduction because you're here for the content. But if you're here for me, all fine. So, what are we talking today? It goes about UI5 mixed reality because what I want today talk about is a little bit about, well, we are getting more and more steam behind mixed reality. Well, luckily, Apple announced already a little bit, so there's even more thrill nowadays. And therefore, my first question at all of you is, who actually works with or develops mixed reality applications, augmented virtual reality? Or, okay, so we have 3 hands, great. So I guess something new today would maybe come up to you. Who's playing mixed reality, augmented virtual reality games? Okay, let's talk what games you play. Maybe we can team up later on. But now let's talk a little bit about the agenda, what we are talking about in the business context here. Like, well, first of all, the history about, well, where do we come from? It's not that suddenly we thought mixed reality is a thing and we start, but even this project we did here within SAP has now a history of, I guess, 4 years, at least the inner thing, which I'm talking today about. Then we show you a demo because slides are interesting. Seeing it firsthand is cooler. Then let's get techie. Let's talk a little bit about the architecture, what we did there, and also what's behind it. And last but not least, let's talk a little bit about the future. And maybe I can convince Stefan to invest. If not, you have to ask him. So let's start with the history. And well, it was 2019 when a team within SAP asked themselves the question, we have a Fiori Launchpad, a landing page where you can start up each and every business application. You have one single entry point. And they thought about how can we enhance this to actually also provide mixed reality capabilities. And they actually made some fancy prototyping there, seeing, okay, we have 3D assets, we can include them. It was a showcase with some nice outcomes. And then I thought myself, 2020, hey, but what kind of control and UI framework are you using? Actually, business ready and all that stuff. Customers suddenly complain about translatability, accessibility, all that stuff. So what do we use? So I thought, okay, how can we actually introduce UI5 or the UI5 theming, the UI5 look and feel into mixed reality? We made in Unity some assets which could be used as a UI. And well, to be honest, it was completely boilerplating. And actually, I had to open my own framework department to develop this. So we thought it was not business ready. Then came 2000 and to 2022. It never happened. Nothing happened at our side. And please forget about these 2 years. And afterwards, well, we teamed up again with the FLP team building the stuff in 2019 with the mixed reality team, where Ulf is also part of, as well as us from UI5. And we said, okay, now let's see what happened in the last years. And today we are here. Apple announced some fancy AR devices, and we can show you something. And I think it's cool. So let's go to the demo. To bring you a little bit up, what we will talk about is we will show you this mixed reality launchpad, which actually is an WebXR application. So meaning it runs in every browser, like on this machine, even without it having mixed reality capabilities until I plug in a virtual reality headset. And well, what we have here is we have the Launchpad, which is built natively in the mixed reality. We have some tiles and some groups. If I go closer and press F5, because most likely, yep, it was a timeout. It is it's on the Cloud Foundry BTP server, so therefore. Well, you see already you have some entities there. It is natively rendered, and behind these tiles are different applications. Existing applications, we want to stick true with the UI5's promise. You build an application and it runs on every device. We are just enhancing it to the XR world, but also native application should be there. You have still one entry point. So this is boring since it's on my desktop. So let's switch to the mixed reality capture. So we are now connecting to Ulf's device, seeing how it looks more natively within an XR device. So what you see here is we have within the browser, just with some delay. So a long delay. Yeah, the problem is on his machine, on his device, he will see it in real time, but we have streaming it to via portal device to the laptop to Zoom. So scope with me when if something is not in time as it is, but he would see it as it is. So within the device, we see the browser. It is there within the room. And you can, within this browser, press on the VR button on the bottom, and then you enter actually the XR mode. Every modern browser is capable of. I use Chrome. Ulf is now using the Edge browser, which runs on the Microsoft HoloLens too. And as soon as we start, or refresh, we have also a timeout. Yeah. All right, great. So actually, we enter the virtual reality. Now we have the same as you saw on my machine, where I could, with the arrow keys, run around. We have now here within the room. All this is built with A-Frame. It is an HTML-based web framework. Coding behind it is JavaScript. And the tiles and groups there are actually the same metadata we are using in our today's Fiori Launchpad. We just make a snapshot of your Launchpad and added 4 more applications to show you. The first one is IT equipment, which is actually an application also built natively in A-Frame. So within this Launchpad, we start a native XR application. And this native XR application has now some devices, and as 3D models, you can click on them and you get actually the data. You could even interact more with it, like not in this demo, but if you code it right, you could even put the screen or the device on your desk, seeing if it fits. And yeah, at least in my desk, always a bigger screen fits. And well, so we have a native XR application built in A-Frame within the Launchpad. We can go back. You know all the good old back button at the top left. In the mixed reality, it's more a portal where you can pass through. And if you pass through this portal, well, you're back. So now we have talked a little bit about XR applications, but what about the capabilities of desktop applications, which are not natively built for mixed reality? The thing is, mixed reality has some drawbacks. You don't have a mouse, you don't have a keyboard, but you have other capabilities which we can use of, like you all know the demo of the Flex layout, most likely, if you already used the demo kit. If not, the guys out there are very interested in hearing your feedback. Why didn't use it? So if we open up the next application, the managed products, you actually see a Flex layout as you would see it in the demo kit. And this layout is actually a master list. And as soon as you press on an item, you get a details list. If you do this on your screen, what happens is the master list becomes small. You get the details page next to it. Or if you have a mobile device or a very small screen, the next screen would pop in. So you would have a navigation to a details page and you have to go back to see the master list. Now with XR, we could just render this item differently. So whenever we click on a product, then we don't have to narrow down this thing because we have 360 degrees. The same is true if you get to the supplier. Once again, on a very big screen, you would have 3 different small sections. But here, we can just make use of, well, okay, at 360 degrees, it becomes problematic, but until then, you're good to go. So this is what XR is actually about. you have more or other capabilities you can make use of. So this is how UI5 could look like. Now, what's our question, how we actually can make this? So these are 3 screenshots, actually. This control, we didn't implement it. Took a little bit too much time. But if we see now the last application, we see an UI5 application, and this UI5 application is natively within this environment. And the cool thing there is not that we just brought like an iframe, some content in there, but we provided actually an application with some controls. It is built via transpiler, meaning the UI5 application is rendered in the background. Then there were clickable snapshots, and they were brought into the XR space. Now that we have this transpiler is also aware of controls which are natively capable of making XR benefits, like the button. The button down there looks not like the sub-M button, even if it's a sub-M button, but it actually has its own renderer. And this renderer then is used in this setup to just exchange it. So the transpiler takes the application, cuts them into pieces, brings up the entities, and it knows there is a button which is different, so I render it different. And now suddenly you can implement whatever you want. We could implement in this button a press event when a finger goes into this button, that the button has an animation, that this button fires a press event. And it's exactly the same as I would go into the debugger and say sub UI, get core, by ID, button, press fire. And that is the cool thing. We can actually exchange every single entity. So this is the part of the demo. And thanks, Ulf. So yeah, the keep the fingers crossed, we can skip. It worked. It's still a proof of concept. So once again, we need budget. No, at any time. But let's talk about the architecture behind it. I already talked a little bit about different stuff, but let's get into the nasty details here. And well, first of all, we have a user. The user hopefully has a very nice XR device. So let's put it on. And he opens a browser. That is the first thing, which is actually the standard which we want to go. We have a browser, meaning every device has a browser. And as long as this browser follows the OpenXR standards, it works. We have the XR Launchpad. We just opened the index.html. In this case, BTP hosted. And this index.html is via a web XR framework, in this case, A-frame, just rendering the tiles. The tiles itself and groups, it knows via the common data model JSON. It is some entity provided by the Launchpad. And we have already XR native applications there, which we started. The XR specifics within the common data model JSON is something like assets and stuff like that, but otherwise it behaves exactly the same as every other application. And we are using UI5 applications next to it. We're rendering it in the background with a transpiler, and there we use the HTML to canvas, which actually then just makes these screenshots, clickable prototypes, what's clickable entities, and mapping the events. What we used was now we enhanced the UI5 controls, giving it a getXR control, name TBD. So you won't find it in the public API documentation. And then it actually renders something different. Instead of making a screenshot, the transpiler is capable of just rendering it natively. What are the components we used in there? A-frame. A-frame is a WebXR framework. It works for augmented reality and virtual reality. The good thing is it's nothing you have to learn anew. It's HTML tag-based, and it has an entity component system. So the example above is exactly this lines of code. As HTML. You request A-frame as a framework, you make a scene, hopefully not at home, and then, well, you have the box, the sphere, cylinder, plane, sky, period. You can have also a camera entity where you have something like a pointer, so you know how the gaze looks like and stuff like that. And last but not least, within this Launchpad you just saw, we kept there within this pattern And UI5 application component is nothing else but another entity. And you can also introduce your own entities, like the tile and the group were registered new A entities. If you're developing an X app natively, then, well, you use some kind of native framework. In this case, A-frame is already loaded, so maybe performance-wise a good choice. And you can just include assets. That is the big benefit of XR native applications. You can use assets. You can have a much easier way to integrate with the existing XR capabilities. I also make use of it. Only thing which we had here to do, except making a standalone fancy application, like you just saw there as an example with the circle and the cylinder, you have to provide some metadata and some assets preloading, and suddenly our Launchpad prototype there could even exchange the applications. The back navigation just removes an entity, an app component, like you would also see within any existing Launchpad. And we just preload the assets so that, well, it takes not too long. Good thing is, it is also wrapped in a single entity. So even there, building it, removing it, working within it is quite native for each and every HTML and Java developer. If you're not using the native XR application, we need some kind of coding, some middleware, which brings us from the UI5 rendering to the 3D space. There we introduce the transpiler, and it renders all controls as A-frames. Therefore, we have a complete seamless integration. Whoever has built here a UI5 application, we can later on deploy it on this server, and it will run in there. And also, this transpiler makes use of a mapping. So meaning when I have a gaze and a pinch on the button, it is a click event. Or even you could introduce a button that you have you can speak to the button. You can say press whatever name, and the device then makes the press event. Also, this is possible. Text-to-speech is also a thing because, well, if you ever used in virtual reality or augmented reality keyboard, you really, really want to get your good old keyboard back. Believe me that. Well, the transpiler itself is also aware of the UI5 hierarchy, since it really takes each and every control and then also knows the inner controls and renders them from bottom to top. So like if we exchange the button or enhance the button here, we also directly have the capability to exchange each and every inner control button within a table without reinventing the button in this case. Only thing they have to do is implementing a getXR control. And well, the transpiler has some hiccups, and the performance issues are also there, as well as you know the hierarchy, you know the structure of the UI5 application, but especially the fixed flex layout as an example is very hard to implement, because then suddenly you have to also translate positions to other dimensions within the mixed reality space, while the button, which is that size, going to mixed reality and putting it also there, maybe make it a little bit more 3D, is easy. Saying complete screen looks different or detail navigation is there is another beast. And well, what did we do with the UI5 controls? First of all, every control every app can stay unchanged, and the controls can be used and accessed as usual, also within the coding. But with the transpiler, you can use them without any change. But as soon as we, or every controller developer here in this room, adds this specific optional function, you have a rendering exchange. It's similar to a renderer. You can access the data from the control. You can get the properties because, well, the text is most likely interesting if you want to render some text. And all this stuff can be happening. And yeah, we did this by enhancing, adding an additional library. And this additional library then was loaded and registers the XR functionality. Would even mean we could use UI5 as is without any additional payload in a productive environment. And as soon as you have a mixed reality launchpad page, You just load one library more and the library does the job. So we don't have any performance regression on a default build. And we can enhance this step by step. As soon as we have one control registering this function, we have more. We can figure out the most valuable players. We can figure out which control makes sense to be changed at all, because a label is a label. So if I make a label screenshot, put it on, or if I render it natively, well, it's not that big of a difference, except maybe for performance, but other story. So, and also we make use of A-frame component registration. I'll show you in a second in the coding how it looks like, because now it becomes quite dry. So here we have the example above we just saw. We have a sub-M button. The sub-M button, we just grab it. And first of all, we don't do much with this button. First of all, we're taking the A-frame. A-frame, if you load it, gets a global, and you can register a component. In this case, sub-M button XR focus is registered. So we have, whenever such a component with such a tag is rendered or within our scene, we register an event at the init, and we just say it's some kind of mouse over, or in this case, gaze over. You look at it, color changes, I look away, color change back, and that's it. We can even say, okay, in this case, we just made the example that if you gaze at it and turn around, this is a click event. As you see, we have the mouse leave event. We grab the element, we change the color back, we get from the control there the ID, we get it core by ID and fire the press event. And then we rendered the control. Now that we have a generic class or component registered, when the button would be rendered, we don't use the standard render, screenshot, picture, but we actually make an A entity in our document. We give him the sub-M button XR focus class. Therefore, A-frame knows, oh, looks like it should have a mouse over. And in the end, well, we make a plane, giving it the text of the button, we append it, we have our button. So that's how the whole setup there looked like, how we actually solved all these issues with having a lot more issues identified, like the performance, the screenshots and stuff like that, text input, resizing. And well, what's next for us is we definitely watching the technology and trends, since there is a lot of potential, but also a lot of troubles on the way. The whole community has still to learn how this works, and especially in a business environment where you say, we need business capabilities. It's not something like if you have a Beat Saber game and it crashes, so what? They want your business, the user will have his or her business to be done, and it has a lot of more applications out there which has also to be used. So we will definitely watch the trends, we watch the technology, and we'll see what happens in 1, 2, 3 months, years. See if we get more. Since we made this exercise 3 years ago, so much happened, so much is suddenly possible. 3 years ago, I said, okay, 2030, maybe I will make this exercise again. And then I was asked, and we did this, and I was super surprised how much further we came. We are not there, but how much further we came within these 3 years of development outside on the open world, in the open XR community. We will definitely retry this exercise, or I will try to retry this exercise with more business-ready solutions as soon as they are there, and the trends shows this. And definitely we will continue the fun, because it makes a lot of fun to develop this stuff and working with the colleagues. And therefore, my question to you is, let's have an open discussion, how you envision this, what do you think about this, as well as what you could imagine could maybe be part of your future development experience and also your future products. Questions? Yep, there's one.
Start with a question, because I saw your colleague wearing the mask, and I mean, you made the reference to lightsaber, which is the first thing that you try out with a VR thing. How long can you wear it without getting motion sick? I mean, to me, it was like, I mean, it's somewhat more steady, but we saw with the delay, we saw the wiggling of the screen.
First of all, maybe let's first start off with the wiggling and the stuff like that. The whole delay was due to the technical issues that the device.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the delay. It was
Mm-hmm.
not about delay, but I mean, the motion sickness that you would, I mean, I would suffer from wearing that helmet for like half an hour.
That's definitely a good question. You have the difference between devices like this mixed reality device with the HoloLens, where you can look through it, right? And if you look through it, you would not feel so much motion sickness like in the old days when you're wearing an Oculus Quest, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are getting better, right? Those devices which came out right now, the Meta Quest 3, or the Apple Vision Pro, these are still VR devices with camera pass-through, right? But so there, as soon as the application itself doesn't fit with those 30 frames per second, and you're moving your head, and then you will get motion sickness for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
With this device, you will not feel really motion sickness because you always can look through, from my experience.
Yeah.
From other devices, well, I played one game in VR 8 hours, right? It was okay, right? But I felt a little bit dizzy afterwards, right? So,
Okay.
So
Thank you.
to actually add this, I'm a very VR motion sick person. So whenever I play a game, except maybe some Beat Sabers, and wherever I stand or whatsoever, give me 5 minutes and then I'm done. So it really comes up to the game. When you could talk about gaming, and with the AR device, I also had no problems, especially since you can try it out later. We have the booth out there, and all of you, but maybe not all at once. And you actually, since you still see your environment and your eyes still have a lot of, within your vision, your inner ear still feels what you see. So that is also a thing. And I guess also there, I don't see a lot of business value within virtual reality. I see a lot more business value within augmented reality, because there you are in your space. You can do this in your office. You could add a calendar or whatsoever in your office, work around, maybe not having it completely circling around you, the launchpad or whatsoever. You can do a lot of there. And if I just meet a colleague, see the whole world as it is, see my colleague and can say, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're talking to a Google Glass fan, but I mean, they aborted that.
Yeah, but maybe the rest. So I'm quite thrilled about the whole augmented reality stuff. Let's keep the data privacy and protection stuff at home, because we will definitely have weeks of conversation there. But yeah, if you see a colleague and you just could schedule a meeting because you see the colleague and you see his calendar and say, yeah, there is a free space. Oh, I just made a meeting.
Plug it in.
Would be great. Yeah. So there is a lot of possibilities, as well as motion sickness. I guess it's just a question about how uncomfortable the headset is due to its weight and heat.
Cool. Thank you.
Maybe next.
My question is about the sensors. So the helmet, does it have any sensors, and is there already a support for the sensors in the XR framework? Am I clear?
The thing is that actually, well, within this, you can use the all open XR standards depending on your device. You already have this.
One thing, it's WebXR, not OpenXR.
Sorry, WebXR. Sorry, yeah, it's not framework, but it's open standard, but it's WebXR. All right, so yeah, WebXR already allows a lot of APIs to access these, and also like, well, you can gaze at stuff. You can, and like could even, if you have eye tracking, you can even use the sensors tracking your eyes to actually use as a cursor. That's also what Apple did, because Apple, if you saw the Vision, I'm not the biggest Apple fan, but I guess actually I would say it's quite cool to just look at something and it doesn't matter. You can just look away, make a pinch, and the pinch is the press, instead of like with the HoloLens, you have the cursor and have to pinch, you use your eyes and just say, okay, now I want to click. That is also a thing which is quite nice. No, I don't want to join a meeting. I'm busy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for presenting. My question is regarding the actual build of the apps within mixed reality. To me, it feels a bit weird to just rebuild UI5 apps in a rectangular shape within mixed reality, because that's not how we look at things in reality, right? It's more that our devices are shaped like rectangles. Did you try other approaches to just build UI5 apps in mixed reality?
Actually, the thing here is more the question, do you really want to build a UI5 application with 4XR? Or do you want to have an entry point which makes us the most of XR with existing UI5 applications? So that's the reason why we showed you the device application, which is native XR. And if you ask me, I want to build a business case, I would not say you should use UI5 right from the start. Maybe try something else like A-frame. But now we are coming to the business context. If you have one application built in XR and you have to put on your device, and then afterwards you have to close this environment, which you are immersed into, just to open a browser, throw it onto the wall, because then you have once again the rectangular shape for your leave request application. Then I would say, okay, maybe just make a back navigation by going through this portal and have also the leave request application there. And then it's a question, does it have to be rectangular? And my answer is, it must not. But the question is more, if we already have you in this environment, why not having like the switch control as a lever where you don't have to press, but you could actually drag it? Then you could, and you shouldn't build it. If the UI framework can render it, can map the events, then okay, here is the switch, and it works for each and every control application without changing the application. More levering it into this environment instead of rebuilding it.
Great approach.
Thanks.
Yep. One more. Don't ask about the UI5 version when it's released.
Yes, interviewing you now, Stefan. No, I have a question about the user experience. I hope that's okay. So as you just said, does it have to be rectangular? I was just wondering, did you try doing anything else than just pushing a button in UI5, but rather grabbing items? Like, I know about the showcase with the laptops and trying that on your screen, but anything else, like using UI5 components in an entirely different way? I'm just imagining like there's a button and you can squeeze it or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the reason why I said button. You can also press it, and switch. You can also have a lever there. You just pull it left and right, or a multi-button where you just can drag some component through. This is all what the immersive experience allows. The question is what to make out of it. And yeah, I didn't have a lot of UX capacities left, and yeah.
Call me anytime. No. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, when we are talking about the design, I was thinking more of like the Fury launchpad, and instead of tiles, like have some kind of cube and a person can just twist it like this. So something like this kind of stuff. Can we do it, or it's like
Depends really on how we would implement this. This was now more like, okay, how can we map it without investing a lot in the aesthetics?
Mm-hmm.
So the good old POC, which in the end becomes productive. No, we are not working like that, but we all know that sometimes it happens. No, but here it was really about bringing it on. And then also the question is, with a cube, I personally would have my doubts. Because a cube has, I'm a nerd, so I play a lot of tabletop games. So I know a cube has 6 sides, sometimes 8, sometimes 10, sometimes 12, maybe 20. 100 is also fine, or get 30 is also okay. But if you don't have exactly this number, you have a problem in your immersion, because if you swipe and swipe it, maybe then it's more like a booklet or something where you could swipe through if it's fits and you don't need a big overview. Because if I'm in front of a wall of stickies where I just can grab one and this is my application I start, it's maybe easier to just, I have sometimes even problems finding the right side of a 6-sided die. So when I think about the typical Fiori launchpad, most likely I would get lost when I search for my application.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's definitely a good question, right? And we are there at the starting point. We don't have any more a flat screen, right? We have the room. We
Yeah.
have 3D models. We can
Yeah.
grab things, right? So there will be tons of new ways how you interact, right? Like the HoloLens, they have invested a lot of time how the button will be pressed, right? If you near with your finger on the button, you will see a small light shadow that you know how far it is. And so there are a lot of things which will come up in the future because it's totally new, how we interact with 3D objects, with UIs, which are not anymore flat screen. And this will be super. And I can work on this one. So I'm hopefully with Jackie one day. And then we will figure it out, right?
Yeah. That will be good.
Yeah, thanks. The big problem is really, we are here at, for myself, I personally feel it's more like the invention of the mouse. Suddenly you are not longer bound to some texts and up and down, but you can move freely and you have something like you can press a mouse button and keep it pressed and do something. It was suddenly a huge change in the user experience. And I guess here it's the same. And we are all here grown up with exactly this in mind. We have a flat screen, we have a mouse, we have a keyboard. And suddenly all changes and we have to figure it out. So if you know how to build the Fiori Launchpad, give us a hint. Oh.
Yeah, sorry for probably overtime, but
I'm fine. I'm here till the beer.
great. Me too. So, but so how do you see it with automated testing? How much can you piggyback off if you have an application both as now and you go into augmented reality? How much more automated testing? Because there will be scenarios, as I would see it, that you would need to write new tests and so on.
There come the tricky questions about how we really can make it happen. No, actually, if it's the typical UI5 application with bringing it up, you should be good to go. Like if we would build such a thing, Stefan is already looking a bit concerned that we actually sell something here. No. Now, if something like this happens and we have a framework, no matter if it's UI5, it's an A-frame or something like that, you get a lot for free, like, well, you know how the framework works, that the rendering works, but then from an application point, if we not make this transpiler happen and you actually build the, you don't have to change the UI5 application, most likely it's okay to just test your application as is, because whatever not works is not your fault, but ours. Okay, you should maybe test it because your customers will complain, but in the end, it's our fault and we shouldn't have shipped something. Like that's my point of view when it comes to testing. You should test it once, but you also should blame the right person. The person should fix it. But on the other hand, if you develop native AR applications or XR applications, well, the test frameworks and stuff like that, it's really boilerplating, which was there some years ago. It becomes better, but we are still here in a early phase and the business is just starting. But I guess, especially the vision, if I see the price and the capabilities, the Apple Vision is definitely a business device, which maybe gives it drive, but yeah, there has to be a lot. So we are there testing a lot on our own. Yeah, you're not alone, but you're on alone. You're on your own.
I got a question: which are the like fields of work where people can use it? Because if I like think about that, it's for me, it's like I can see it, for example, in warehouses or 3D modeling or stuff like that. But for like the basic applications or like normal PC stuff, it's for me make more sense just by bigger screen than like 360 VR. And So what's like the fields of work you encounter that this could be used for?
Yeah, so warehouse is a very good example, especially everywhere where you need free hands or can even make use of your environment. The very easy example is you look at a container, and if your camera is capable of seeing it, or if you know due to the fact where are you, where's the container, and you have some tags on the container or see the barcode or whatsoever, and you can identify the container and bring the information up. It's a lot easier than breaking out your iPad, your phone, making a picture, and then getting the shipment information. And you have still 2 free hands. That is a thing where it really works. When it comes to bigger screen, I would more likely ask the question, yep, you can do that. But if such devices get more and more into mass production, and it is more the price of a monitor or even a laptop, it's a question, do you just buy a laptop and a big monitor, a big screen, or do you just use this device? If it is comfortable, if it brings the same capabilities, maybe even more, it's easier portable, suddenly maybe the cost and benefits change. Until then, I would say definitely I like my big screen, and I'm completely happy with making my leave request within a very flat, boring application. Still, I get my vacation. That's all what I want. But on the other hand, if I get more out of it, then suddenly it may change. Like my Outlook calendar could also be on the wall. I don't buy a second screen, put it on the wall just to put Greg Outlook there. But if it's natively there and I just don't need always to check what's my next meeting, but I can see it there and see my free spaces, maybe then it becomes interesting. Even if it's flat on the wall.
So if there are no further questions, then we are right on time. Let's have a second round of applause, please. Thanks for your demonstration.